Testing. Testing. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi,
Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, Liz, it's 9:30. We can get started.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Liz Kukla. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm going to read the preamble for you this morning, this Monday, November 14th, 22. In compliance with notification requirements of the city's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards, commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Please note that call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak in a particular case via our website and email. All requests to speak in a particular matter have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Thank you, Maurice. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can you call the roll, please?
Sure thing. Ms. Terry Brown will be out this morning. Ms. Holzer,
Present.
Ms. Bate,
Present.
Ms. Roca,
Present.
Ms. Britt.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum with 4.
Okay, and just to let you know, since we have 4 members, if we go 2-2, that means your case will go nowhere. So you are allowed to ask for a postponement, when your case is called. All right, go ahead, Liz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 2 postponements this morning. The one in front of you is a request from Councilman's Life for calendar number 22-193 at 15722 Lorraine Avenue. Annette Packus, owner, proposed to establish use as an assembly, meeting, and party venue. The councilman would like more time to meet with the community, to coordinate with the community, as it states here in this email. 30 days, Madam Chair, would be December 12th.
Okay, if they think that's enough time, I'm fine with that.
I see Councilman's Life is on here. I don't know if he would like to
Mhm.
say anything about that.
Okay, and to get rid of it, just swipe it down.
Councilman's Life, does that seem like that's enough time for you? Oh,
30 days is good, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, and then we have another one?
Yes, the next 2 are the ones that are on the last page of your agenda.
Okay.
Those are calendar numbers 22-188 and 22-172 regarding 2915 Detroit Avenue. 2915 Detroit Avenue LLC proposed to change use from factory to office cafe, yoga studio, and bicycle spin studio, as well as to establish use as a bar restaurant. Madam Chair, we would like to get this back on the agenda as soon as possible. This is an internal issue with staffing. You may remember it's a quorum thing.
Yes.
And so we can get them back on the agenda as early as November 28th. December 5th would be the next one. We have received some requests to put them on, requests from the administration to put them on as soon as possible, November 28th.
I think we'll go with the 5th, but we'll have some internal conversations, and if need be, we can move it to the 28th.
Okay. December 5th. Okay, so those calendar numbers 22-188 and 22-172 will not be heard today. And if you received a paper copy letter for these calendar numbers, as well as the other one that we mentioned that's being postponed, we will send another letter out to you. So look for that in the mail. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is that all for the postponements?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, great. Let's start with the first case. Ms. Holzer.
All right, our first case is calendar number 22-147. This is at 2429 West Superior Avenue. Bridgeworks LLC proposes to erect a 15-story tower with 140 residential apartments on floors 2 through 10, a 4,200 square foot restaurant on floor 11, and a 130 hotel rooms on floors 12 through 15, a 200 space parking garage, and retail use throughout the ground level of the tower, garage, and in a separate building facing West 25th Street in a limited retail business district and an urban form overlay district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are 3. And who am I handing it over to?
Yeah, I just remembered that. Ms. Faith, would you mind swearing people in this morning, please?
Helps if I unmute myself, and I was just going to offer to do that. So for all those present for this case, I'm going to read the oath. You are to raise your right hand. Following the oath, please state your name, your address, and I do. One person at a time, please. So here we go. Raise your right hand. I do swear or affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. Steve Jennings, 5000 Euclid Avenue.
I do. Graham Veazey, 1455 West 29th Street.
I do. Asmund Cruz, 5169 Fowler Avenue.
Okay, is that everyone?
Can the last guy who spoke, can you say your name again, please?
Asmund Cruz.
Okay, thank you.
Got that?
Yes.
We, to everyone, we do have a court reporter. So it is important that you state your name clearly and loudly enough so she can get it into the record for you. And when you give testimony, you'll want to identify yourself as well. Okay, with that being said, Madam Chair, back to you.
Thank you. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property was originally zoned general retail in 1929. And then in January of 2020, it was changed to limited retail and placed in the urban form overlay district. In our records administration office, we found only that in 1937, a permit was issued to erect a bulletin board on the property. And then there are no variances on file for this particular address. We did find that there have been interior and exterior alterations through the years in our, more recent Acela system. Then I think it might be pertinent to know that in 2021, there was a permit issued for demolition of select elements of the building for the bridge work phased project. And that's all that I have that's relevant. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting area variances from the setback, frontage, build-out, and parking regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you. Okay, who will be the spokesperson for this case?
Steve Jennings with LDA Architects.
All right, Mr. Jennings, go ahead.
I guess it's, just the first on the page you had up with the yellow property line. You can see very clearly on that the property line is very unique on this property. Portions of it extend out into all three sides into the roadway. So it's kind of not a typical rectangular lot with the property line kind of rectangular and following a sidewalk or something like that. Especially on the Detroit Superior Bridge side, you can see it's well into the traffic lanes. Next slide. So we have presented this to the Ohio City Design Review and Landmarks Commission and received final approval from both of them, which was noted on the zoning appeal as the fourth item. So that has been completed. You can see in this view just how the property abuts the Detroit Superior Bridge, which is rising in elevation as you go towards downtown. So really, the at-grade portion is just at the corner of West 25th and Detroit, and then on the Vermont Avenue behind the building. Next slide. This is just more of a drawing to kind of show the different elements. There's a small retail building at West 25th, and then the tower building is behind that with ground floor retail, hotel lobby, and residential lobby with residential apartments from floors 2 through 10. The 11th floor is a restaurant, and the 12th through 15th floor are hotel floors. And then you can see to the right, there is a detached parking structure. And then at the corner of West 25th and Detroit, you will see there's a small historic building from 1939 that we call the ticket booth, which has stair access into the what used to be the subway system there. So that will be maintained. Next slide. So the view from the opposite side, showing the drop off to the hotel. Otherwise, elements are the same as in the previous slide. Next. In the site plan, you can see that the items we're asking for variances on vary greatly. So the setback varies on all sides based on the existing conditions and the proposed form of the building. So on the Superior Viaduct, we have from the curb line 15 to 30 feet, and from the property line, it's about an extra 15 feet because of where it goes into the roadway. And then it varies greatly along the Detroit Avenue side. Same thing with the frontage build out. So we are providing these pass-throughs to encourage this as a very pedestrian oriented project. So it is not built 100% on either frontage, which is where we're asking for the variances. Next slide. This one pretty clearly shows the elevation difference from the building level and then the Detroit Superior Bridge on the right side. Next slide. And this use would be a cafe related to the hotel lobby. Next. This is a view from further down on the bridge, looking west. So you'll see kind of the overall form of the building. Next slide. This is the same view in the evening. Next slide. This is the view looking east towards downtown, similar to the one that was at the beginning of the presentation. Next slide. This is the evening view of that view. Next slide. And so I think that's the presentation. So those were the renderings that were presented to the Ohio City Design Review and Landmarks and approved.
Okay, can you just talk about the variances you need today?
Yeah, so the first one that was on the agenda is the setbacks in an urban form overlay district, limited to 8 feet maximum. So as mentioned, based on the existing property line, and then our, multiple buildings, we are proposing setbacks that exceed the 8 feet. That also includes, maintaining that historic ticket booth on the corner. So yes, so they all vary greatly and exceed the 8 feet. On these secondary streets, it's limited to 6 feet, and again, we've exceeded that. The second item was the frontage build out required of 80%. We are at 68%. On the secondary street, 100% is required, and we're at 75% for the secondary street. Again, I think both of those are really related to the unique configuration of both the property line and the site next to the bridge. The third item is the off-street parking, which is required. 269 spaces are required. We are proposing a 200 parking space parking structure that's on the right side of the page. And that's all the variances we are requesting.
And I think, this is Graham Veazey, one of the developers to give context of the site plan and why the buildings are sited the way they are. The access to the underbridge of the Detroit Superior Bridge, where the streetcars used to be, it is actually right where between the parking garage and then the 15-story building. And that's very deliberate in order to preserve that access to the underbridge in case that becomes a future public space. I'll use two examples in the not too distant past, but pre-pandemic, the United Kingdom's, there was a artist collective out of the UK called Squid Soup that Cleveland Urban Design Collaborative invited, and they had temporary installations in the underbridge. And in one weekend alone, you had 14,000 visitors that came through that site. And so we think it's important to site the buildings so that we preserve a potential future access for temporary installations such as Squid Soup, or Ingenuity had an event underneath there. So that's just to give a little context of why the parking garage where it's at and why the building's where it's at. The other thing is we'd taken feedback from Landmarks Commission to step the 15-story structure back so that you preserved the view sheds to St. Malachy Church, which you can see on the top left-hand side of this. Anybody who's familiar with this church, it's got that neon green cross at the top, and that's a nod to historically, sailors on Lake Erie would use St. Malachy's to understand where they were if the visibility conditions were not opportune. And then that's why we set back on the retail side, but we wanted to activate that pedestrian experience. And then for the parking garage, that I think is very important, because I know that this committee has talked at length about it, is we're fronting that with retail. So there'll be, you could call it micro retail or retail, but so that when you're having that pedestrian experience, and I think it's appropriate to acknowledge today's the 10th anniversary of Jeff Speck's Walkable City book. It's today that they're releasing the 10-year anniversary, and so a lot of the way that we've cited this project has been informed by those walkable components. We've talked to the planners at the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority, and they're in support. The BRT that is in development will actually start across Detroit on 25th, and so that's an important part of kind of why we cited the building as we did. And then we've gotten letters of support from our neighbors at Cleveland Metropolitan or Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority, CEO Jeff Patterson, and then a number of other stakeholders from the city council person, who I'm not sure if Councilman McCormick's on, the county councilwoman Yvonne Conwell, the neighborhood development director Tom McNair, and a host of others. So I just wanted to give a little context. And then finally, the pedestrian experience between the bridge and the building, where Steve was showing that cafe seating. The requisite for the hotel lobby and the coffee program is that it's designed to be way beyond just welcoming for hotel guests. So it's very deliberate that we want to be able to attract folks that live on Superior Viaduct as their morning routine. And so that's part of the program, has dictated that this is a coffee shop that's beyond just the hotel guests, and in our case, the additional 140 residences, half of which will be workforce housing. So just some additional color to add to Steve's presentation, but thanks so much for all your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, do you want to add anything?
Nope, nothing to add.
All right, thank you. Maurice, I saw front setback and wigged out, but we're okay?
Yes, Madam Chair. I know Carl Brunges from the Landmarks Commission was online. I wasn't sure if he wanted to make any comments about the approval from the Landmarks Commission before I got into anything with setbacks.
He needs to be sworn in if he does.
Carl, did you want to?
I just, I'll swear in if I need to, city employee.
Yeah, Carl, you do need to swear in. So if you want to raise your right hand, I'll read the oath. You reply, I do, state your name and the address, okay? I swear or affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do, Carl Brunges, 601, please.
Thank you, Carl. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm just here to confirm that Bridgeworks was approved by the Cleveland Landmarks Commission, but the garage signage and landscaping still needs to be finalized as a part of that project, and staff still needs to receive their final salvage plan. One of the earlier conditions that they could not do the demolition until everything was finalized as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Maurice.
Let's see. You know what? I just realized my camera's not on. Yeah, Maurice Rowland, City Planning. So I wanted to point out with item number 1 with the front yard setbacks, those are actually maximum limits. So in this case, they really should only be 8 foot off of the property line, or 6 foot, depending on the frontage, instead of numbers like 28, 44, and 27 feet. So it does lend itself to a lot of sea of concrete. It would be great if, during the landscaping, maybe some permeable pavers or some other things could be added, I think, to the site plan to make it not such a giant sea of concrete. But because those are maximums and not minimums, it was the opinion of staff and Mr. Riccardi as well that you would be able to grant those variances. If you were going in the opposite direction, then we would have had to have changed the zoning with that. As far as number 2, the frontage build outs, they're really not very major variances for that. We're only talking about, I believe, 12% and 25% off of what's required. So those are really very minimum variances. And as far as the parking, we totally support the parking variance. We feel they're supplying ample parking for the project. This is on a major transit line. There's a future transit line being promoted here. So we fully support that variance as well.
Great. Thank you, Maurice. Okay, I'll open it up for questions from the board.
Madam Chair, I just will start with really a comment to Graham. I truly appreciate the comments that you made with regard to the thoughtfulness of having access to the under bridge on the Detroit Superior Bridge. It is one of my favorite venues actually for events to participate in. And I'm glad that that's being, that you're thoughtfully planning for that going forward. And my other comment is with regard to the RTA's BRT, which is a bus rapid transit route. So that is going to offer a very nice ease of access to public transportation. So I think that's an added plus with regard to the parking variance. So those are my comments. If any of my colleagues have any comments or questions, I'll yield the floor to them.
I have, Madam Chair, I have a question. With regard to the bus rapid transit line that is proposed, and with respect to the parking variance, can Graham please speak to where the bus stop will be? Are there going to be any changes? Is it bus going to stop right in front of the property? I'd just like some more information about that.
Yes, through the chair, it will be actually on the south side of Detroit. So it won't be kind of between the quarter, phase 1 and Bridgeworks. It will be between Forest City, Savings, and hopefully the totality of Irishtown Bend Park. That was part of our real desire and interest to meet with the planners at RTA, was to make sure that the way that we were designing the site was only complementing the work of the BRT initiative. And so we've been part of those public meetings with West 25th Connects, and then went and sat down with a number of the planners at RTA. To your other question, I don't know if I addressed it.
You did. That was one question. Where was the bus stop going to be
Oh, got
in
it.
relation to
Sorry.
your property?
Yeah. And so, yeah, we think that it complements and they're in harmony together.
And I think that's probably the only place you could really place it, because where on the corner closest to the project is the turning lane to get onto the Shoreway going west. So it would be really difficult and probably dangerous, particularly given the fact that we have a Vision Zero initiative in the city to make things safer. So I think that's the only placement. So thanks for bringing up that question. If there's nothing else, Madam Chair, I'll move to a motion.
Please do.
Okay. We have heard testimony about this project. We've had some questions and comments. We know that the Ohio City Design Review has okayed this, that it's gone through landmarks. We have testimony from Mr. Rulins in City Planning addressing each of the variances that are requested. And I think we understand all of the parameters that they are trying to address and the constraints that they're working with. And so with all that being said, I move that we approve calendar number 22-147.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Madam Chair, Board Member Roca will second.
Ms. Roca with the second. Go ahead, call the roll.
Ms. Olzer,
Yes.
Ms. Roca,
Yes.
Ms. Vig,
Yes.
Ms. Britt.
Yes.
Calendar number 22-147 is granted. It'll be ratified when we meet next Monday, and then we will send the appellant a letter.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much to the committee.
Thank you. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing this.
Very nice project. Yes.
Yes.
All right, moving on.
Next case is calendar number 22-191. This is at 1331 West 70th Street. Villa Mercedes Community Redevelopment Corp. proposes to install a 5-foot tall ornamental fence / gate in actual front yard in a multifamily zoning district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there is one. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Faith for the oath.
All right. For those that are making testimony on this case, I would ask you to raise your right hand. I'll read the oath. Your response will be, I do. State your name and your address clearly for the recorder. And here we go. So I do swear or affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. Michael Bovenzi, 1221 Homestead Creek Drive, Broadview Heights, Ohio, 44147, trustee for the building Villa Mercedes.
Thank you. Next.
I do. Jennifer Pear, 131 West 7th Street, property manager for the Villa Mercedes Apartments.
Thank you. Next. That's everyone. Okay, great. Madam Chair, to you.
Thank you. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. We were unable to find anything in our records administration office for this address. There are no variances on file. And then in the more recent history in our Acela system, we find that there are several or many interior alteration permits that I don't believe are going to be relevant. There are electrical permits as well as elevator permits. We do see that in 2012, a permit was issued to install equipment and cabinets for Sprint Tower on the site or Sprint location boxes. And again, in 2014, we see the same thing. New antennas are co-located on the site, as well as in 2018. And in 2021, there was a permit issued for removal of Sprint equipment on the roof. And that's all that I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting an area variance from the fence regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you. Who's going to be the spokesperson?
I will speak on behalf. Mike
Okay.
Bavenzi here.
All right, go ahead.
Yep, so what the request is a 5-foot gate, a rolling gate that would allow the patrons of the building and the parking to be a safer environment. There's been issues where people have just parked in spaces that are reserved for the tenants. The gates, there will not be a fence around the entire property. It is merely just the gate. And there's asking for the variance on this, or the zoning variance on this, because of the size of the gate in relation to the building. And you'll see that we have a beautifully ornate gate scheduled for install.
All right, thank you. Ms. Perry,
Thank you.
you want to add to that?
Well, just to elaborate on what Mr. Bovenzi was saying, I have had quite a few break-ins into the cars here. People pull in once they see an open spot. They don't read the signs. So my elderly and disabled residents end up having to walk a very long ways to get back to the building because their reserved parking spot has been taken by somebody who just doesn't read the signs. So I think putting the gates up will immensely help my residents.
Okay, thank you. City planning?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Maurice Rowland, City Planning. Yeah, I completely understand the need for this fence. It's a very nice decorative fence. Don't have any issues with that. The only question I had is the gate that's on the screen right now, which I believe is on I think that's the northern gate, is only 29 feet from the street, whereas the other one is 33 feet. Can we possibly move that so that it's 30 or a few feet more, just because you want to have at least 2 spaces for queuing so you don't have people backed up into the street? And the average length of a car these days is about car/SUV is about 15 feet. And it looks like there's room on the site plan. I was just wondering if that's possible, just slide that back a couple of feet.
I could speak to that. If it's an option without any restrictions on site, I can't see why we wouldn't be able to do that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why it was set at the location it's set, unless Jennifer, you know what might been the reason there. But I think that we'd be willing to make that change without any reason not to. Jennifer, do you know any reason why we couldn't make that change?
No, I think we could push it back a little further. Can you repeat how far back you have the north and the south gate?
Well, the south gate you have at 33 feet, and then the north gate you have at 29 feet. And looking at your site plan that was submitted, I mean, I'm just looking at the plan itself. It looks like there's plenty of room to move that gate, a foot or so back, just like to match like where the other gate is, just to allow a clear room for 2 cars to queue up to pull in, so you don't have someone hanging out in the street because it's somewhat of a narrow street, a lot of traffic. And so it's really more of just a safety issue. And again, I couldn't tell for sure from the site plan if it was possible, but it does look possible. Just a minor change.
I think that would be a great idea to line them both up at around 33 feet, if that's what you're recommending and suggesting.
Yes, that's what we would recommend. Thank you.
Very good.
All right, great. Yeah, I'll open it up to the board for any questions or comments.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a question to Mr. Rulins. Are you asking for that to be a condition?
If possible, yes. And if they couldn't do it, then just, you know, maybe you could make it as part of the resolution so that when they come for ratification, they submit new plans. And if they can't do it, you know, if there's a physical reason why it can't be done, then it is what it is. I think we would be okay with that.
All right, great.
But again, like I said, from the site plan, I can't tell if there's some kind of physical, you know, restriction down there on that side of the property that it can't be done.
Okay. And to the appellant, you understand that and you're willing to submit new plans and try to make them both set back at the same distance?
I would be in agreement to that. If Jenny, she's the building manager, if she is as well, I am just a trustee, but I think it would make a lot of sense if we were to make those both in line. And I don't remember anything that would physically stop that from happening. So I would say yes to that. Jenny, do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree. I believe we can accommodate that. Yep,
Yeah.
do it.
We would just make that change on the site plan, is what you're suggesting?
Yeah, that's all you have to do.
And then
Okay.
you'll just submit to us an updated site plan.
Very good.
So that's on the record. All right?
Okay.
All right. Any other comments from my colleagues? All right, I'll go with the motion then. Madam Chair, we have heard testimony from both of our appellant representatives as to the situation and the need for this gate. We've seen a drawing of the gate, very good-looking ornamental fence. And we have had comment from city planning that they would like for both gates to be set back to the same distance, which I believe is 34 feet. Is that right, Mr. Rowlands?
I think it's 33 feet was the other one.
33.
It's 33.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say at least a minimum of 30 feet, just because that's
Okay.
about 2 cars to queue.
Okay, so 30 to 33 feet. And for the reasons just stated, so that there's room for cars to queue. And we'll ask you to submit, as I mentioned, updated drawings reflecting that change. So with that being the conditions, Madam Chair, I move that we go ahead and approve calendar number 22-191.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Board Member Holzer, second.
Ms. Holzer with the second. Go ahead, call the roll.
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Holzer?
Yes.
Ms. Biggs?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Calendar 22-191 is granted conditionally. We will hold ratification until we receive that updated drawing. Once we receive that updated drawing, we will ratify it the following Monday, and then we will send the appellant a letter.
Thank you for your time.
You're
We
welcome.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's okay for us to sign out, right?
Yes, you may leave us now unless you want to enjoy the rest of the morning with us.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Apparently not. Okay.
Oh, it is fun, you know.
All right, next case.
Thank you.
We have calendar number 22-192. This is at 5169 Fowler Avenue. Mary Kuksa proposes to construct a 64-foot by 25-foot, parenthetically 1,600 square feet, single-story garage in a B1 two-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances, as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there is one. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Faith for the oath.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. So for all those making testimony on calendar number 22-192, I'm going to read the oath. You will raise your right hand and you will reply, I do, state your name and your address clearly, and one person at a time. So here we go. I do swear or affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. Asmund Cruz, 5169 Fowler Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio, 44127.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Anyone else?
I do. Chris Alvarado, Slavic Village Development.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? All right, Madam Chair, looks like it's on to you.
Thank you. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In our Records Administration Office, we found that in 1965, a permit was issued to erect a one-story garage. There are no variances on file for this address. And then in the more recent history, we found that there were board up notices issued on the property in 2019. Then 2022, in April of this year, a permit was issued to install 141 linear feet of 6-foot fence. And then also in May of this year, a permit was issued to install 18 linear feet of 4-foot fence. And that's it, Madam Chair, that I have that is relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting an area variance from the ancillary building regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you. Okay, who will be the spokesperson for this case?
I will be Asmund Cruz.
All right, Mr. Cruz, go ahead.
So I'm trying to erect a 5-car garage because I have 12 vehicles. The purpose of purchasing that building in that area, it's Industrial Valley, and I own a business. I moved it from Richfield, which was more central to both city, Cleveland and Akron, but I have a lot of customers in Cleveland, and I started a company in Cleveland. What's happening is that there are issues parking, because obviously 12 vehicles can't be parked out in the streets. And as you can see, sometimes we're parking on the grass just to get out of the way for other people who are trying to load up materials. The purpose of the garage won't be anything commercial like vehicle maintenance or anything like that. It's more along the lines of being able to park vehicles, clean the vehicles whenever they need to store materials and things like that. Or put away materials. Right now we're using our basement. I bought that box truck in order to have a warehouse, to have all my materials. But essentially having just the small space that I'm given, it's kind of away from what I originally was trying to do with this area. In fact, I even tried to get the property next to me, but I was denied that because I already have that other lot. So that's not an issue there. But nevertheless, I would like to put that 5-car garage so that I could store vehicles. I mean, I even have vehicles that don't go out unless it's my Sunday car. But that house, I have it more for my office. That's what I use it for. I'm an electrical contractor.
Okay, I was just about to ask, what's the nature of your business? All right, great, thank you. Mr. Alvarado?
Hi there. Yes, this is the first time we're hearing about this. I guess I do have concerns about. I have several concerns about establishing a business within a 2-family zone area, especially as we're having more residential development taking place along Fowler Avenue. So we just opened up. We just had the opening of 5115, the Rising, the multifamily apartment building right on Fowler and Broadway, and then there's going to be other future residential development here. Our understanding was, so we saw the original application that Mr. Cruz had sent for the side yard to the right, the one that's behind the white fence there, that's actually now owned by his neighbor. that application was for a side yard. It wasn't for the storage of vehicles. I guess I'm just really uncomfortable with basically establishing a business in a increasingly residential area. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
May
Okay.
I,
Yeah,
may I?
Ms. Cruz, yeah, if you wanna,
Yeah, I was gonna say that I don't know if you realize or not, but number one, it is Industrial Valley, which the purpose of the neighborhood is business slash factory and residential mix. There's a train yard. I mean, if you're having an issue with having a business in that neighborhood because it's residential, well, that building that's catty corner to my house, which I'm still using it as a home, it hasn't changed. Uh, it hasn't changed the structure. It's still a home. And if everybody decides to move out, I'll move into that house because I'm beautiful inside. If you guys come over, you come over and see it. I made it very beautiful, very comfortable as a residence. And again, if you look at it as a residence, 5 cars, I have 3 BMWs that they have to be out in the snow. And I have my pickup truck, which I use for business also. Those are not commercial vehicles. Those are all residential vehicles. And then also you have a commercial, like I said, there's a building that's falling apart. That building should be torn down, but that's a commercial. And then 2 houses down is a mechanic shop. And again, like I said, there's a train yard down the street. You're not wanting commercial in the neighborhood, but there's already commercial, whichever way you look at it. And there's always going to be commercial in that neighborhood.
so Mr. Cruz, although it will be a couple of work trucks, primarily they're your personal vehicles you'll be putting in this garage.
Yes, yes. All the vehicles go home with the guys. The only, let me see, yeah, all the vehicles go home with the guys. I'm still looking for employees so that I can get rid of some of these vehicles, so they could work on it. If you can see that truck says AC Electric on it, the guys take that home, and that's better advertising for me. Right now, currently, we only have 1 vehicle that's being used for that's being parked there because we can't find enough employees. In fact, I got an interview on this on Friday. The box truck was bought only with the purpose of being able to store everything. I eventually want to buy a building in Akron so that I can start my generator company out there, store that box truck out there, and fill it with generators. And that's going to be but that's, again, that's future, like next year. I'm trying to put that together. So it's not, I'm not actually making the house a business where I'm gonna have retail people coming in and out buying stuff. Has nothing. It's just basically where I have my phones and the office where I do paperwork. It's a home office essentially, if you really look at it.
Okay. Mr. Alvarado, you had your hand up?
So I will, Mr. Cruz has done a phenomenal job on the house. Let me go ahead and say that straight out. Second, while he's correct that there are nearby industrial buildings, those are within a residence industry zoned area. He's got folks living on both sides of the house, as well as across the street, the apartment building that I mentioned that was just developed, as well as the senior housing. The box truck that's back there, that's there all the time. That doesn't go away. At night, we in fact went by and a photo that was sent to me from the evening, in which again you still see the same box truck back there. So while some of those vehicles may be on the move, Mr. Cruz is essentially running a business out of a residential part of the neighborhood. Yes, there's industry nearby, but there's not industry within immediately adjacent to Mr. Cruz's property.
Okay. City planning?
Madam Chair, I guess from what the applicant's saying, it seems to me like we need a change of use here. I mean, I've heard multiple things about running a business out of a single-family home in a 2-family district. It just seems to me that we need to re-advertise this as also a change of use. He's running a business out of a house. He's talked about retail clients coming in. That's my opinion on this.
retail clients don't come in. I was mentioning it's not a retail store; it's just an office. We answer phones and just store paperwork, and that's it. I've always
If it's
ran
going to
it.
be an office, it still would not be consistent with, I mean, we've granted office uses in other residential neighborhoods before, but he would have to get a use variance. Maybe Mr. Riccardi can chime in. He's the zoning administrator.
Yeah, he does have his hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Riccardi.
Yes, this is Richard Riccardi. I'm the context of what was applied for here, the big garage site, and he said 12 vehicles. Now, what we discovered here today are things that were not asked for. Is that I think I heard that no one is living in the house. It's just being used as an office. And so your garage is no longer an accessory garage. You're basically using the lot to store a bunch of vehicles in a residential district. You can park your cars in a residential district if you live there and they're your cars. We're hearing about trucks being stored. We're hearing about other commercial vehicles being stored there with no one living there. So it's correct. I mean, I don't. This application is for a big oversized garage, but there's obviously much more going on here that I think should be unpacked, and an application should be made for running the business in a residential district. Thank you.
I agree with that.
Madam
Ms.
Chair,
Calhoun?
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I saw her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I had a little trouble getting on today, but I'm the planner for this area.
Yeah, I think you have to get sworn in though before you speak.
Okay, thank you.
Swearing last time.
Nicole, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand, and I'm going to read the oath. Following that, you'll reply, I do. State your name and your address, okay? I do swear or affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. Nicole Calhoun, 601 Lakeside, Cleveland, Ohio, 44114.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Calhoun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, as Mr. Alvarado stated, this is the first time that we're seeing this, but I do have a lot of concerns. Looking up this address, it is housed within a two-family and across the street from a multi-family. That's number one. Number two, according to the testimony of the applicant, they got a side yard. Side yard is never used for parking. That's really big for us. And then number three, I concur with Mr. Riccardi about understanding the occupancy. I was wondering what the occupancy license is for this house. And I do have a lot of concerns that it is used as a business when it is a residence. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, from my standpoint here, there's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to, that I don't think we can make a proper ruling today. So we're gonna have to postpone this case and until these details get hammered out.
I'll tell you what, listening to everybody, we don't have to go through that. I didn't realize this was such a major concern for everyone. What I'll just do is I'll wait for that building to get built on the corner, and I'll just put I'll put a for sale sign on it. The property is gonna go up in value, and I'll just buy a commercial building somewhere else. I just figured I'd bring business to Cleveland. That's not the case. I don't have to stay there, so that's fine. I'll move. That's what you guys want.
Okay.
That's what'll happen.
Okay, so just officially withdraw your case right now. Just say I withdraw my case.
Yes, I withdraw my case.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right. Next case.
Our next case, I think that, okay. I was just waiting till we pull up calendar number 22-194. All right, calendar number 22-194. This is at 1060 Boulevard Road. MTP Bolivar Residences, I can't talk this morning, I apologize. MTP Bolivar Residences Propco LLC proposes to erect a 4-story, 178 residential unit building with retail use on portions of the first floor, including 277 structured parking that incorporates an existing non-conforming parking garage. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are 4. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Faith for the oath.
Thank you. For all those that are making testimony on this case, I will read the oath and ask you to raise your right hand. State your reply, I do, state your name and your address. So I do swear or affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
I do.
William Roediger.
This is Jerry.
What, gentlemen, one person at a time, please.
Butler Street.
I'm sorry, one person at a time. We need to make sure that the court reporter captures your name. So we'll go to William first, please.
William Roediger, R-O-E-D-I-G-E-R, 1234 Bolivar is the address that I represent.
Okay, Jared.
I do. Court Doc, Architect, 3400 Butler Street, Pittsburgh, PA, 15201.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Madam Chair, to you.
Thank you. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In our Records Administration Office, we found that in 1970, a permit was issued to erect an open parking commercial garage. There are no variances on file. And in the more recent history, found in 1999, a permit was issued to install one illuminated ID projecting sign. And that is it that I have found that we found that's relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting a use variance and area variances from the parking and transparent windows and doors regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you. Okay, who will be the spokesperson for this case?
That will be Jared Korchak, Westmoreland Architects, Project Manager.
Okay, go ahead, Jared. Just to let you know, you're going in and out, so your connection's kind of messed up.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Are you guys able to hear on my microphone?
Madam Chair, it might help if other people mute their phones.
There's a lot of people unmuted. It is. They need to mute themselves.
Hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll let you know if we can't.
The property is located at 1060 Boulevard Road. The garage in question, the request for variance is regarding a liner building. The garage in question is an existing garage. It is at the top of the page there. That's the existing garage that we have. It's located at 1060. The two images at the top of our road, which is a major road at the bottom, are actually on Erie Court, where there is a requirement for a liner building. And can we go to the next slide? This is again image of the site. Here we go. So just to get your bearings around the site a little bit, there's an existing structure at 1020 Boulevard Road, directly to the west of our existing 1060 garage. The existing garage is to remain as part of the future development. The project will be a residential structure that will incorporate that 1060 garage as part of the project scope. The garage was intended to be built on top of at some point in the future based on the existing structure. So we are actually building on top of that existing garage for the new project. The adjacent parking garage at 1124 Boulevard Road will actually be raised as part of this project and replaced with new ground level retail and parking in the rear that will support the residential use of the project. Go to the next slide. Again, these are just a few more context images around the site. The image at the upper left is approaching the Stadium District along Boulevard Road. Our building is actually located on the left across from an open parking lot. The image directly below that shows a typical elevation along the front of the building. You can see that there are existing, the ground level is the entries for the existing parking level. And on the second level, there are brick fins that basically were constructed as part of a screening effort previously when the building was originally constructed. Our proposed project proposes to build on top of that existing garage structure with a new residential structure, four stories above the existing garage. The images on the left, you can again see the garage in context with the adjacent buildings. On the upper right-hand corner, you can see the 1124 garage next to our building, which will be raised, and the new building will be built in that location, and then over top of the garage. Then the image on the bottom right shows the existing building at 1020 Boulevard that is directly adjacent to us. We will be attempting to connect the building to that building via visual connections and cues related to the treatment of that first floor parking level of the 1020 building as well, which you'll see in the renderings that are coming out. You can go to the next slide here. So this is the first floor plan of the proposed project. On the left side of the plan here, you can see that's the existing parking garage that we are salvaging and reusing as part of this project. On the right-hand side of this plan, you can see that is the new parking garage in the rear, and then a proposed retail and residential lobby as part of our development. Next slide. This is the second floor of the existing parking garage and of our proposed building that will be top. We've kind of dashed in the 15-foot liner depth requirement on this just for some context in the space. Again, all of the parking as part of the new building will be pushed to the rear of the building and accessed off of Erie Court. So we do meet the liner building requirements on the new building. The existing garage is intended to remain. You can see circulation ramp that actually accesses the upper levels, the second and third levels of parking of that existing garage from Erie Court. You can go to the next slide. And next slide is the third floor. Again, very similar on the existing garage itself. It was intended to be extended up previously. And then the new garage, or sorry, the new building that we have where we transition to residential on the third floor with amenity areas as well. And you can go to the next slide. So this is the proposed elevation. We have presented this to the Planning Commission, have received final approval. We've also have a letter of support from the Downtown Cleveland Alliance, who we've met with multiple times throughout the history of the project here. And we've also met with the PetBot folks as well regarding the streetscape treatment and activation along the street at the Boulevard. The activation of the street was very critical to the project and something that we've been coordinating very carefully with the city teams to make sure that we're providing an active sidewalk along that the building here, which doesn't currently exist. The image on the upper right-hand corner gives a pretty good sense of what we're doing here with the existing garage. So we are basically building our building in the adjacent lot and then over top of the existing garage and providing connections down from the new building to the garage to help to provide a new exterior cladding on the existing garage. And then we're also removing the angled brick fins that are currently in those openings and replacing them with a more contemporary mesh perforated screening infill to allow us to screen the parking. But again, we're also trying to create a connection with the building above. One other benefit of the screening is that we are seeking LEED Silver certification, and the natural ventilation that these openings provide for our reduction in mechanical ventilation systems is very critical to the project. You can also see on the lower level of the existing garage that we are providing new openings that are screened to match the 1020 garage. And you can see the image on the upper left is an existing opening of the 1020 garage directly adjacent to us. So we're trying to create a consistent aesthetic along the building to create a visual connection and also additional transparency. And those screenings on the lower level do also help with our natural ventilation requirements for the space as well. So it serves multiple purposes. The image in the middle shows an example of the screening that we are proposing in the openings. It will be semi-transparent into those openings, but we'll create a more contextual aesthetic with the rest of the building to help us connect it more, this existing garage. You guys can go to the next image here. So one of the comments that we had from zoning was confirming the transparency of the buildings here at the ground level. So what you're seeing on the bottom is the new building elevation, where we are creating an activation for retail along the boulevard sidewalk. We do meet the transparency requirements for the new building. We are at 79% transparent, where we're required to be 70%. On the upper image, you can see this is the existing garage elevation with the proposed new screened openings in there. It's also worth noting that those screened openings will be provided with planters in front of those openings, which will provide additional screening and a landscape buffer for pedestrians on the sidewalk. One of the really key aspects of this project, as I mentioned, was trying to create a more cohesive and more activated sidewalk along Boulevard. And I think that these openings and some of the moves that we've made along the sidewalk itself are really trying to enhance the space and create a more activated sidewalk that's more secure for people, and it creates a better connection. You can go to the next slide here. So we have a couple images, renderings that we put together. These were presented to the Planning Commission previously. They show the new building that we're proposing, which is a residential structure, 7 stories tall, over top, and it also extends over top of the existing garage, which you can see in the bottom right of the image. That's the existing garage that's being provided with new cladding, and also being provided with screening along the front to create a more contemporary aesthetic that better relates to our proposed building design. And the ground level activation that we have along the building as well. You can see that we're providing a lot more street trees, planters, bike racks, and things like that to help connect Playhouse Square with the Stadium District as well. The next slide, I think, is another rendering showing a different view straight at the garage here. Again, we're really trying to connect the upper levels of the new residential structure with the parking garage below to really try to help this garage fit seamlessly into this project design. We really wanted to keep this garage from the very beginning. We think it's a great structure. It's got solid structure. It was intended to be extended upwards in the future. There's a ramp on the roof that actually goes to nowhere currently. So it was overbuilt structurally. So we're really trying to utilize that overbuilt structure to provide a new base for our building above. And again, the intent is really to try to create a seamless project, a seamless aesthetic between the new and the old, and trying to tie them together with this screening system that we have. The intent of the liner building requirement is really to provide screening, and what we have provided here, we are trying to meet that intent with this variance request. I think that might be the last image. There might be one more. So this is the last image here, just showing the before and after. You can see in the left image, the existing 1124 garage will be raised, single-story garage, where the new building will replace that. And then the new building will extend over the existing garage. You can kind of see the ramp that I was talking about previously, where that garage was intended to be extended up further levels. And our new building will extend over top of that garage and connect down to the ground level. Again, we're providing screening as well to meet the intent of the code as well. We feel that this isn't the variance isn't going to affect any of the government services that are provided in the area. It also doesn't. It's not creating a detrimental aesthetic that's that's against what's going on in the rest of the space. It meets the essential character of the area that it is. And I think the critical thing to note here is that this garage is existing. We're not building this 1060 garage. We're really just trying to create an aesthetic where we can keep the garage integrated into our new building in a meaningful way and provide a seamless aesthetic across our entire project is the goal. And I think that's the end of the presentation here, but really looking forward to hearing your feedback.
Great, thank you. Mr. Roediger, did you want to add anything?
I'm not really adding, I'm asking more questions. Did they look at trying to do a portion of the existing garage facade to have the setback, the 15, 16 feet? I can see where with the garage door and the access in that you may not be able to do everywhere, but couldn't you do a portion of it to have some kind of softening of the look?
Mr. Roediger, where are you from? What is your standing in this case?
I'm the president of the Cleveland Grays Armory, which is right next door, basically next door with the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just interested in how it's going to look, whether we're going to improve the appearance. Right now, the street looks rather barren. So adding the trees, I think, is going to be a big improvement to it. I'm just trying to find out that 165 feet, does it all have to be facade, the vents and things like that? Can a portion of it be retail? Or sitting area, or?
So the existing garage structurally, as I mentioned previously, we're really utilizing the existing structure of that garage. It's really not a conducive space to retail or any other use. One thing to note with that garage is it's currently completely open. The floors are all sloped to drains. There's no insulation on the exterior walls. It's a solid concrete structure. Really not a great space to convert into any other use other than a parking use. It's also worth noting that the 15-foot liner building requirement would put us directly in the middle of our current stair access and access to the space and our core of that garage, which we do intend to maintain as much as possible. And it also requires us to eliminate the doors and create a separate circulation system for the garage. So there's a lot of detrimental effects of trying to meet the requirement on the existing garage, and it really doesn't work for the project, which is why we're really trying to incorporate the retail spaces and the residential lobby and the transparency along the new building where we have more control and an existing structure or new structure that we can meet requirements. And again, one of the goals of the project was to enhance the streetscape as well, and that's been one of our main focuses along the front of the existing building as well.
And you did go through the design approvals, correct?
That's correct. That's correct, yes. And we have a letter of support from the Downtown Cleveland Alliance as well, which I think I shared as part of this submission, but I'm not sure if it's here.
Well, you did mention it earlier. I just wanted to have that for the record.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Hold on one second, Ms. Roca. I want to hear from City Planning first, and then I'll open it up to the board.
Sure, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, we've got Maurice Rollins from City Planning here. First of all, thank you. Very thorough presentation. I think you covered everything very thoroughly. Yeah, this is an adaptive reuse on part of this building, you know, the garage, which is great that they're reusing it. Unfortunately, it's what kicks in all of the variances here, or a good portion of the variances. And, you know, the reason that we instituted the liner building was not so much for existing buildings as it was for new construction. So we recognize the issue that they've got here because they are reutilizing an existing indoor parking garage. So we totally support the variance to the liner building. And I also have to say that they did a wonderful job on the new building with incorporating a liner building pretty much, and the retail in the front. So we're very pleased with that. They meet their parking requirements, so we fully support this project.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Ms. Roca.
Madam Chair, Mr. Rollins basically answered my question about the liner building. But while I have the floor, I wanted to see if Mr. Korchak, if you have any renderings of the retail or the ground floor space, the retail lobby, or the lobby in the retail space, I should say. Okay, thank you.
I do. I do have those renderings. I'm not sure how much time here I have to pull them up. They're not in this presentation. I can share those with the board if you could prefer, or if you can give me a minute here, I might be able to pull them.
No, Maurice just pulled it up, so we have it.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Yes, perfect.
Okay, board members, any other questions?
Oh, and Madam Chair, I also forgot to mention that they did a great job on the, the glazing on the front of the building, especially on the new part. As you can see, it easily meets the 70% requirement on the glazing. Again, on the new building.
I was surprised it wasn't a glazing variance added. So yeah,
right. It's primarily again for the garage.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, as far as the grades are concerned, we think it's a great project in addition to our neighborhood, okay? We're just asking questions regarding how do we keep that street softer? Right now, it looks too much like a back alley, kind of like what we're still gonna have over on Erie Court.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roediger. All right, board, any other questions?
Hearing none, Madam Chair, I'll go to a motion.
Go ahead.
We've had a thorough presentation and with the input from city planning, I think all of our questions have been answered. We appreciate the neighbors' interest in this project and desire to soften the streets, and hopefully this project will be an impetus to make further improvements along the street so that that does happen and it becomes much more attractive and walkable. I too was glad to see the glazing taken care of, and I think the proposed resolution to the screening of the parking garage melds nicely into the structure. So I think that that was a nice addition there. So we've discussed all the variances and we understand them. And so with all that being said, I move that we go ahead and approve calendar number 22-194.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Board Member Roca seconds.
Ms. Roca with the second. Go ahead, call the roll.
Ms. Olzer?
Yes.
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Calendar number 22-194 is granted. It'll be ratified next Monday, and then we will send the appellants a letter.
All right, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you all very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all very much for your feedback this morning. We appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good
We'll
luck.
be looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you. Us too.
All right, moving on.
Calendar number 22-195. This is at 4506 Lorraine Avenue. North Coast Shuffleboard Club LLC proposes an expansion of office and salon use to include a tattoo studio in a local retail business district and a pedestrian retail overlay district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances, as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there is one. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Faith for the oath.
Thank you, Ms. Holzer. For all those making statements and testimony on this case, I'm going to read the oath. You will raise your right hand, reply, "I do," state your name clearly for the recorder, and your address. So here we go. Please raise your right hand. I do swear or affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Oh, can you guys
Go
hear
ahead,
me?
please, one at a time.
Oh, is somebody else talking?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. I do. Cam Morton.
Okay. Anyone else?
Need your address, Mr. Morton.
It's are you talking about home address or this address?
Whichever one you want to use.
We'll do a home address. It's 2132 Chesterland Avenue, Lakewood, Ohio.
All right, thank you. All right, so to you, Madam Chair,
Thank you.
we have one person.
History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Property was originally zoned to general retail in 1929. 1995, it was changed to local retail. And in 2011, it was placed in the pedestrian retail overlay district. Madam Chair, I think the most important information here is that in calendar number 16-92, a variance was granted to erect an addition and establish use as a bar restaurant with indoor-outdoor shuffleboard courts and patio, plus a 17-car parking lot. This variance was granted with the condition that revised plans be submitted showing a landscape screened wall of arborvitae will be installed along the northern property line. At the time also, the appellant stated that the hours of operation will be Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. and Saturday and Sunday, noon to 1 a.m. And then, Madam Chair, in calendar number 17-137, the board granted this variance as well. And in this one, the appellant was asking for to erect a 4,000 square foot addition, again, to the building, use of new expanded space as a bar, restaurant, amusement, recreation with indoor-outdoor shuffleboard courts, patio, and 20-car parking spot or lot. The project area at that time included 5 separate parcels to be consolidated. The notes on this also stated that it referenced the 2016 variance and also referenced the hours of operations still being from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. and as well as Saturday and Sunday from noon to 1 a.m. At the hearing of this case, the appellant stated that he had acquired more land and proposed to expand the parking lot to 20 spaces. The appellant also stated that any fencing proposed will meet the code. And at that time, the community or Ben Trimble from Ohio City was present to support the variance. And that's all that I have for you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal standard, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting a use variance from the regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessarily hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Morton.
Yeah, so I was asked to, are we able to do a postponement? Sorry to do this so last minute, but I didn't know how to go about this.
Okay, so you need a postponement?
Yes.
Yeah,
the owner wanted to be here, but he wasn't able to.
Okay, Liz, we're well into December, so, and it might be January, depending on how our date's looking in December.
So far, December 12th is pretty light.
Okay.
And that is the last hearing, as we don't have quorum for the following 2 weeks.
Correct. Okay, well, Mr. Morton, we'll put you on for the 12th of December. And if at some point you feel like you're not going to be ready, just let Ms. Kukla know ahead of time, and then we can just put you on another agenda instead of having you come here.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
No problem. All right, next case.
I believe that's it.
That's it? That's
Yes,
even
we had
better.
a
I like to-
2915 Detroit, but
surprised.
that was postponed.
Oh. All righty.
But if you want to stay online and
Absolutely not.
We do
All right.
old business?
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll do
Yes,
that.
we
but
can
we're not
do
gonna
that.
stay online
Call it a
after that.
day?
There we go.
All
Lovely.
right, old business 1 through 6 without objection, board.
Without objection.
All right, fantastic. We are adjourned.
Hey,
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. See you next week.
Everybody.
Bye,
See
everybody.
you next week.
Great week.